Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Post Credits Podcast, a show where we are lucky enough to talk about movies with you. This is episode 15, recorded on February 2nd, 2025, to get posted on podcast services on Tuesday, February 4th, and February 7th. We're doing two this week.
Oh,
I know. Oh, baby.
we
2025,
put
the
in extra
usual
work
spots.
for you people.
Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, and then YouTube. I am one of your hosts, Grayson Maxwell. Joining me, as I do every week, are my co-hosts, Roger. Why do they live in such lavish conditions, Bond, and Chris? I really want to wear a cape. No, Roger Stillion and Chris Bond. I got the names mixed up. Sorry about that.
You good?
I'm good, yes. But
it's early for Grayson, people. It's
Here's
early.
the-
It is
I also-
early for Grayson. We are recording early on Sunday.
I also wanted to... I thought Roger wanted the cape more. I meant to switch those in, but I didn't. I was reading...
Never
God,
trust a man in a cloak. Those are words that I have spoken, and it is true to this day.
Who doesn't want to... Yeah, but who doesn't want to wear a cape, man? Those are just cool.
I do.
And they're very infunctional. Well, I forget where I saw that. Like in a
Look,
funny
dude,
movie.
I'm wearing a hoodie and basketball shorts right now. Like, if I had a cape on, I'd look like a fucking asshole.
You would.
No, listen. I'll take the cape. I'm the oldest of a bunch of siblings, and I have abandonment issues. I absolutely have a hero complex. Let's
You
do
do.
this
You
thing, know what I mean?
definitely fit right
You earned a
into.
cape,
you know.
though?
What?
You think you earned the cape?
I didn't earn the cape. I fucking wore the cape and acted like
That's
I
what I
deserve
mean.
it.
Hold on,
So,
hold on.
You said you're taking it back. Like, you need it again. Like, I get it. I did so good with it the first time I had it.
Hold on.
Fair.
Chris didn't choose the cape life. The cape life chose Chris. That's his
Mhm,
defense.
mhm.
The superhero
This is
found
true.
him. Not he.
This is
he
true.
didn't. Superheroes. That's the thing with superheroes and villains. Villains want to be villains. Heroes. They don't want to be the hero. They need to be the hero.
You merely adopted the dark.
I was born in it.
In it.
Yep. Yes, one of my favorite movies of all time, and I worked on
Fucking
it.
One of the
Hey-o.
greatest speeches ever, by the way.
Yes, it is. Gentlemen, how are we this week? What is going on?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Got to watch a
Mhm.
couple of good movies this week. Lots of stuff going on out there. And we are recording early, like I said, on Sunday, because got some stuff going on in the evening for one of us today. So that's good. Which is also going to mess up when we talk about box office, because we're not going to have accurate numbers. But it's
Oh,
also
yeah, that's true.
Groundhog Day right now happening. So that's a real thing. Where we trust all the science and meteorological weather to a rodent that comes out of a hole.
Mhm,
Which-
mhm, mhm, mhm.
Sounds about
There
right.
are some traditions that maybe don't really need to carry on into the future. I'm just
So-
saying.
So I would say that I would agree with that as well. However, and when my wife listens to this episode, inevitably I'm going to get shit for this too. But
Good.
our youngest daughter, for
Okay.
some reason, became extremely excited that it was Groundhog's Day today, last night, and looked at mom at my wife, her mom, and said, Mom, can we watch the video for Groundhog's Day in the morning? And she
Wait.
looked up the time.
What? Okay.
And-
You mean like live stream when they
Yeah,
pull him out of the little
yeah.
thing and hold him up?
Yeah, and she looked at the time and aired. She was like, "Oh God."
Wasn't it like 5 a.m. or some shit?
Yeah,
it's like
it was early.
6 or 7 in the morning, and my my wife was up until like the wee hours last night reading her book. So she was paying for it this morning. So
Yeah.
definitely entertaining on my end.
Yeah.
And, she was like, "Why are you not the default parent for this?" And I was like, "Listen,
She asked you specifically because
Hold on.
that's what
She wants
I
her
do as a
mom.
parent. Be like, listen, she asked you, mom. She didn't ask dad. She asked mom.
So
Now, listen, I'll do it, but she asked for you.
So here's the adjoining question. Chris, did you take your daughter on her birthday to see the animated movie she wanted to see, or did you deny her that on her birthday?
Listen, boys,
Dogman, we want to hear it.
I have successfly avoided Dogman."
So far,
To
So
this
far,
point.
that's right. That's right.
To
So
this
far.
point, but her birthday is on February 28th.
Dogman will still be there.
Well, listen, that little that
Oh
little
man,
shit,
she was almost a leap year kid.
yeah. My daughter,
dang.
that little shit, will not forget that she told me she wanted to go on her birthday to see Dogman, and she won't mention it
you-
until the day before. So
Did
I'm
you
not
hear
out of the woods until I'm out of the woods.
Did you hear that, Chris's wife? That little shit, he said. That little shit, he said. Just saying. Did you hear that?
Dogman.
He said it. He said it. Yes,
Dogman.
Dogman. I am very excited to hear the Dogman report from Chris when you finally have to go watch it. So we'll
Listen,
be eagerly awaiting those.
It's almost
Who's
a
we?
guarantee. It's almost a guarantee that I'm gonna be subject to that monstrosity of a movie. But it is what it is, boys.
Watch you like love it.
Yeah,
Watch you come out there and be like, I love you guys.
I
Have you seen
wasn't down for it, but Dogman, it's fucking awesome.
I mean, have you seen the trailer?
Yes, of course.
I highly doubt that's gonna be the case.
I mean, bad trailer, bad movie.
I mean,
yeah.
it is unlikely, but you can never
Yeah.
say no for sure.
I mean, fair enough.
I mean, Lil Rel is funny, so there's always that.
Dogman is gonna make money because again, it's the only kids movie out for some time. So
I mean,
it came out.
there's
good
not a
value
whole
point.
lot out. Period. Right now.
Yeah. So
Do you guys really think it survives till the 28th though? 4 weeks?
yes. Oh, it's the only kids movie that's gonna be running essentially.
Yeah, I
Why wouldn't it?
guess. Well, but like Cap's gonna. I mean, I don't think Cap's gonna do near the damage that people think it'll do as far as like
What?
box office sales. But I think it will do some damage to get rid of some stuff.
It'll take some screen. Well, here's the thing: it ain't taking Dogman screens.
Yeah.
See, here's what I'm surprised at is I thought because of all the nominations that came out last week that
Mhm.
everything would return to theater, but
Not
nothing
yet.
returned.
Not yet.
I foolishly assumed I'd be able to watch both those in the theater this week, and I
Ah.
couldn't. But I
It'll-
thought, that's a sure thing, of course.
So you'll see most of them. If anyone that's coming back to a theater, you'll see 2 weeks before the Oscars.
Mhm.
That's when they'll all come, and you'll get like 4 of them at the same
Well,
time.
that's why I don't think Dogman will survive because if
Mm.
stuff's going to come all the way back, and Dogman's
peop-
not going to be doing good. I
The
just I don't-
people that are going to watch the Oscar films are not watching Dogman. Like these are two very separated audience groups.
Yeah, but you've got theaters only have so many auditoriums, and if Dogman's
Oh.
several weeks old, and they're like, okay, we got to push something out to make room for these movies we got coming back. Yeah, of
I mean,
course.
we'll see. We'll see.
All right.
I think
Well,
Dogman's
so-
gonna make way more money than it's worth.
Well, I mean, we are 1 month from the day out to the Oscars. We are
Yeah.
all the way through. We are 4 episodes. Well, 3 episodes ish away.
Yep.
3 weeks away.
From our
Chris,
from our late night partying, boys.
So
Chris is going to come out of
because-
Dogman. Like, that's it. Best animated picture of 2025. That's it. Hands down.
So yeah,
gotta-
for like new people, because this is a new venture for us, we will we'll get together, probably remotely. I don't think Grayson will be in for this one, but me and Chris will sit, and Grayson will sit, and we'll watch the Oscars. We'll make fun of it, and then we'll
Yeah.
talk about it for a while afterwards. So
You guys remember the first time I watched the Oscars?
Was it
Yeah,
the slap?
it was a
a
slap.
That was,
Yeah.
that was the first. That was my first experience with the Oscars. That was exciting.
Listen, you'll be chasing
good
that dragon
programming.
the fucking rest of your life, buddy. You'll never be that good again.
It was never that good up to that point. It's never going to be that good again.
No.
So
I mean,
No,
it's
listen, it was good one point before that when it was like 36 minutes long and it happened during peak COVID. God damn it, that was incredible. I loved it. It was perfect in every way.
there was one year in like 2017, 2018 when it went to like 3 a.m. or something. Like this
That's
is
when we
not
finished because
okay.
like it ended at like 1:30 or some stupid shit.
Jeez.
Yeah,
That's
It was-
not
it-
okay,
Like
man.
legitimately, it was like by the end of it, I was like, God, just shut up, stop talking.
I don't know when the slap happened. I don't think I've ever actually seen Roger's jaw drop and him say nothing for a few seconds after
Well, it's
we
like,
watched the replay.
When it happened, it was so weird, and I know we've talked about this on other things before, but
Yeah.
when it happened, like I thought
It was a
our
bit.
feed had glitched. Well, we thought the feed
Oh,
had
that's
glitched
right.
out.
Yeah.
Because like the camera hard cut and then it went silent. So we were watching it streaming, of course, because
I was watching it live. I was watching
Yeah,
it live.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we didn't know what had happened, and so Grayson was like 10 or like right before.
20
So he's
seconds
like,
ahead of you. 20
he
seconds
was
ahead of you.
like, I can't believe it just happened. I'm just like, what? It cut out. He's like, I think he hit him, and I'm like, what are you talking about?
What just happened?
So like I'm rewinding real fast trying to
Yeah.
see, and then
Yeah.
it was just a wild interaction. So
Yeah.
well, never be that cool again ever.
Nope. No.
Was that
Well,
4
over
years?
the
That'd be, what,
years-
4 years ago now. 4?
Mhm. 3
over the years, people have over the years, like all the Oscars, all the speeches, some celebrities gave like little comments of like insults to someone. I've seen but like nowhere near a physical slap on television. Like that was amazing. I can't. Oh my goodness. I
Attack
wish
the
that
host.
them.
Good
Maybe
call.
they'll stage it again because the ratings be like, I'm sure after that happened, people were most televisions in America were like, "Oh shit, I gotta go watch that." I imagine tons of people started watching the Oscars after
I mean, didn't they ban Will Smith for all the Oscars going
that.
forward?
Yeah, but it's Will
I mean,
Smith. He's not going to be banned forever.
He's gonna show up eventually.
I mean, listen, he will be banned until he gets nominated again.
Yep.
Yeah,
And,
that's true.
Like that's not happening anytime soon. So
Maybe
still hanging out
not.
for Bright 2, buddy.
Dang.
Still
right.
hanging out for Bright 2.
That's the movie you want to see a sequel to. That's what you're want to see a
Listen.
sequel to.
I mean, I wanted to see a real sequel to Independence Day, but that didn't happen.
We don't. There hasn't been a sequel to Independence Day. We don't talk about it.
That's
Rob.
what I
Stop.
mean. So, like,
Mm-mm.
here's the thing: what other Will Smith movie do you think needs a? You want another Bad Boys? Like, I ain't never going to get nominated for an Oscar.
Well, I always wanted a sequel to iRobot.
Same.
All right,
I
still
thought-
not
I
ever
thought
going to
there
get an
was-
Oscar though.
No, of course not. But like, I mean, is the I Am Legend sequel still a thing? They've been talking about that for years now.
Okay, even if it is, who fucking cares?
Yeah, and he's not in it if there's a sequel, unless they do a prequel like thing, which they can't because they started that movie off in like well they flash back to all the shit that happened, so it'd be weird to do a prequel. I think.
Mm-hmm. Let's see what else. I mean, I don't know. Like besides
Wild
Bad
Wild
Boys,
West. Wild Wild West.
Stop.
yes,
Stop. No.
yes. No, like look, be heroic and cross over Men in Black and Wild Wild West. Do it.
I didn't
Fucking
have
do it.
I didn't have any.
How big
movie
couldn't
not-
be any worse, right?
I didn't have any movie knowledge back when that movie came out. You know what? I still don't really have any now. So who am I to fucking talk? But I saw that
Some
movie
asshole
back.
on the radio.
I saw that movie back when it was current, and I knew that movie sucked then. So there's
Oh,
no
yes.
fucking way.
Sucks so hard.
I just thought, yeah. Well, they were just going in. That was the whole thing. Like Will Smith was never as big as he was then in the late '90s. Like he was just the biggest thing ever in the late '90s. So, yeah, I understand that. But yeah, I can't really think of another one. I don't. He doesn't do movies that like are sequelable. You know what I mean? Like
Not usually, yeah.
maybe he does. I'm just not thinking of. He's been in so many, but I don't. I can't think of any off the top of my head without looking at a list on IMDb. Even
You think we're getting a King Richard 2? No.
No, I think
Unlike Emancipation 2? Unlikely.
No, listen. There's so much weird bad shit we could say about what Emancipation 2 would actually be like, look like, and be staged in. We stay away
Well,
from that.
Do you think like I'm talking in all seriousness. Like, do you think Hollywood ever makes a movie about like Senator Around the Slap? Like, is a maybe like a kind of a weird surreal thing? But
I could listen. I absolutely could see a documentary about it. A movie,
Maybe
No.
that. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, maybe a doc, maybe talking about it in some way like that's like history based. You know what I mean? Because it was a moment in history, whether they like it or not. But Hollywood has proven that they just want that to go away. They don't
Yeah.
talk about it. You know what I mean? They're not going to be like at the Oscars. They're not going to like like pan the camera to an empty seat and go, and this would be where Will Smith would be if it wasn't for
Listen.
that fateful day.
Listen,
Like they're not bringing that up.
listen.
That
There's a
fake
host out there that has balls. That would be hilarious.
well,
If
so he's
anything-
not.
Who
This
is
is
hosting the Oscars this year?
I actually don't know. It's not. I don't think it's Kimmel.
No,
I think
don't
I
so.
think he's been axed. I don't know. But hold on, just so there is I Am Legend 2 still is on his IMDb page is upcoming.
Oh, it's Conan.
Okay, Conan. Okay, yeah. He has 5 movies
Conan.
actually upcoming: Planes,
Great.
Trains, and Automobiles, Fast and Loose, The Council, I Am Legend 2, and Resistor. I don't know if that any of them are except for I Am Legend
Is
2.
Fast and Loose like Fast 11?
I don't think it is,
Fast
but
12?
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles has to be a remake, right, or some form of an update.
Well, I mean-
yeah, it's a remake of the 1987 comedy.
That's
Sounds
great.
familiar. Yeah. I was gonna say.
Well, that's John
That's-
Candy and
That's what
yeah,
everybody. Steve Martin. That's what everybody's been clamoring for.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I swear. Okay. I don't know. We're long on this. We should probably
this is
moving,
long. But like, I was
still.
just looking for like, I can't even. I'm going down this list. I'm like, I can't see one movie. I'm like, yeah, that's definitely sequelable.
That's a good idea. No.
well, maybe Aladdin. Maybe we make a second Aladdin. But I mean, I'm
Okay,
sure that
so
idea's maybe
all jokes aside, I could actually see that.
Yeah.
Now, listen, would I be excited for it? No.
Well, actually, okay, or another Spies in Disguise. But that's not what we're talking. We're talking about Will Smith actually like Will
No.
Smith on screen. Yeah, I like Spies in Disguise. But that was Tom Holland and Will Smith. I really like that one.
I don't even know what that is.
It's
What
an
is it?
animated movie.
movie.
Oh,
where
okay.
where he had to help Will out of his house when Will was the spy and Tom Holland was the kid, and I don't you may have forgotten it, which is very fine, but yeah, I mean Bright is Like Collateral Beauty's not that way. Concussion is not that way. Like none of these
Concussion 2.
movies. Winter's Tale, like Anchorman 2, but who's only in it as one of the. I just watched that again recently. God, what an awful movie
Horrible
that is.
movie.
Yeah, I just don't see a movie that is maybe Hancock 2.
Now,
Like
see,
Hancock
look,
2 would be cool,
I would
but
watch the shit out of that movie, but
Yeah.
like still
it's not
not
Oscar,
Oscar.
right? Yeah.
Nope.
No. But like Hitch isn't in iRobot's not Jersey Girl. Like he was in there for like 2 seconds, but yeah, like nothing. Going all the way back to the 90s, I don't see one movie I'd be like, okay, I could see a sequel except for Men in Black.
Bad Boys.
Hmm.
Obviously, again.
Yeah, Bad Boys and Men in Black, sure, but like, I mean, you're not gonna sequel to Ali, you know. I mean, you're not gonna sequel to Legend of Beggar Vance. I mean, come on, man.
Why not?
It's just I don't know. Enemy of the State, but those were never meant to be sequelable. You know what I mean? Those were
No.
always meant to be one-offs. Anyway, we're running a little long on this,
All
but
Moving past Will Smith's terrible filmography.
and him slapping another human being live on television.
Yeah.
Which is fun to debate. Don't get me wrong. It is always fun to debate. What else is going on real quick, guys? This week. What's going on?
Nah, I'm good, man. Nothing
Yeah.
much more for me.
Yeah, not much else. You know, well, my work has been crazy busy. A lot of things happening right now with all the executive orders. So it's just it's definitely impacting. Even though I'm not, you know, technically a government employee, I'm contracted, but it still affects us because we work with the government. So other than that, just been busy with life in general. It is what it is.
What a
interesting,
time
though.
to be alive.
That's interesting though. That you have direct ties to like what's going on in the White House. That's pretty cool though, Chris. I don't think I
mean,
really knew
direct is probably isn't it? It's like direct
Direct.
adjacent.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
think
so
those words go together.
that's
direct
the,
adjacent, no.
that's the point.
Week's been okay here. I think the fires are pretty much done.
Good.
I did see something about. Now, keep in mind, one of the places that really burned, the Pacific Palisades.
Sure.
You guys may not have
smoke.
ever seen it, but that's like one of the most wealthy places to live in the country, like in the
Yeah,
entirety
that's where
of
a bunch
the
of the
United States.
actors and people live.
And now the people of LA are pushing that there needs to be all kinds of like really kind of posh houses down to low income houses. And I'm just like,
Don't
just
you
think
already
that's
have
weird.
that?
But like in the Pacific Palisades, it's just I don't know how LA or California is going to deal with that. But like I saw that and I was like, that's a bad take. But
So like, look, I'm not trying to talk political, diversity or financial diversity amongst Californians. Like I know shit about it, but like, listen, I know where I live. There's a big fancy section where rich people live,
yeah, sure.
and then there's a whole lot of not big fancy sections where like people like me live. And
like me.
I understand like their stuff is fancier than mine, and that's okay. Like I get that. Like every town I've ever lived in has a fancy section, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Like, because
Fancy.
you don't put mansions in the ghetto.
No, you do not.
That's just how that works.
I wanted to start going over what just real quick. So the list I didn't read last week was what I'd watched real quick. Obviously, Flight Risk, Runaway Jury, Surrogates, Faster, Dallas Buyers Club, The Whale, which I really enjoyed again.
Will's a good
On
movie.
the Line,
Whale's good.
On the Line with Mel Gibson, In the Land of Saints and Sinners, Rust Creek, Still Alice, Breakdown, Amelia Perez, Terminator 2, and this week I've watched Management, Major Pain, which I love that movie, Major Pain.
Wait, with
with
Damon
Wayans brothers.
Wayans,
Yeah,
Major Pain?
I
Oh my
fucking
goodness.
love that movie. Triple X, Return of Xander Cage, which is a wild ride, start to finish.
No, fucking
Um,
horrible.
The Italian Job, Good Burger 2, which I didn't even know existed. Drobit
My,
Taylor,
ne-
Rules.
my nephew loves Good Burger.
I did too when I was 11 when it came out. I was obsessed
Yeah,
with it. Drobit Taylor, Rules of Engagement, Cold Mountain, Labor Day, Primal Fear, which I really love that movie with Richard Gere and Killing of the Archdiocese in Chicago, which kind of ties into Conclave this week a little bit, I guess. But
Sure.
Anchorman 2 and Conclave. So I'm trying to like list the movies I'm watching each week, and this is with a work schedule. I'm just trying to be, time management. I'm trying to get better with time management.
So I drank a bunch of beer and watched the Royal Rumble last night because I'm
All right.
fucking awesome.
Did you see? Did you see I Show Speed?
Yes, of course I did.
Yeah.
Because like I care about that person in any capacity in my life.
Oh, I don't know. I think it's cool that like the WWE is I believe the perfect format to reach out to like large personalities at this point.
Sure,
like
of
that.
course it
So
is,
I mean,
yeah.
and they found success with that in other people, like like what is it, Logan Paul or whatever. So
Yes.
Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's actually interesting that they're like in like multiverse crossover mode at this point in their own
Sure.
way. I think it's
Except for a lot of these big YouTube people also tend to be shitty people in real life. You know,
Yeah,
so
okay, that's fair.
like
Actually, that seems to be
I have
pretty
no
synonymous.
problem with the crossover in general.
Yeah.
That
Sometimes
seems to
the
be
people they cross
synonymous,
over
though.
not great.
That seems to be synonymous, though. Like the millionaire YouTubers are also like not great people. Like that seems to be pretty like
Sure.
equal down the line. Like there's no one who's
You
like.
think there's some sort of direct correlation there?
Well, here's the thing: is like one of the first. Of course, you mentioned Logan. The Paul brothers were like
Yeah.
two of the first, but like also Mr. Beast. All the stuff about
Sure.
Mr. Beast and how he's really like all the stuff's been coming out lately about he's really an awful. Like you think you've met an awful person before or heard about one. I've been hearing things about Mr. Beast is like people are like, he's the worst. So I just can't. But like, it's just why does that have to be synonymous? Why can't you just be cool and be a millionaire YouTuber? I don't know, but. Such things are beyond me. Once again, folks, this is episode 15 of Post. Thank you for laughing at me. A Post Credits podcast, where we are lucky enough to talk with you about movies. This week, we have a good show for you. But we're going to talk about the box office, what little we can. We're going into whose recommendation is it? I don't even know whose recommendation it is this week.
I recommend Conclave.
Okay, fair enough. We're going to talk about what is a Best Picture. Now, this is just our kind of opinion on what a Best Picture nominee, the qualities it should have within it to be a Best Picture. Now, this is, of course, there's a sliding scale here. It's all subjective, of course, but I have my thoughts. I know the guys have their thoughts. And then we're going to get into the substance for this episode. So without further ado, let's jump into let's jump into the box office. There's not really a whole lot we can talk about because we're recording way before the numbers are being tallied, but we can do dailies. I'm looking at dailies for Friday, January 31st. Dogman took the number one spot, believe it or not. 10.8 million. It did. 10.8 million for
Chris.
Stop.
I hope your daughter loves it so much. He's like, "Can we please come back tomorrow and watch it?"
That's if she sees it. That's if she sees it, boys.
Wow. I mean, you realize your wife listens to this, right? Like, you
That's
understand
fine.
that?
I challenge. I will challenge this.
Number 2, Companion, with just a little over 4 million, with just over 6 million worldwide gross. One of Them Days, 1.635 million for a 30 million worldwide take. We have Flight Risk, 1.5 million. It's at 21. So it could reach its $25 million box office, budget. And Mufasa, 1.3 million for a worldwide of 631. So we'll catch back up with the box office for next week. But those are the top 5 dailies as of Friday.
Sure.
I'm not surprised that Dogman took it. Only kids movie out.
True.
Yeah, that's not
look, you got to go with what you got, right? Like, there's only certain things you can do. So,
I mean, if you could be strategic, your movie. Like, I mean, there are people that know those things that that like study that for a living and employed to make those decisions.
Oh, I bet.
Well, I mean, listen, I've said for years, pay me $1 million a year, and I'll just tell you when or what to not release, and you'll save so much more money. Like, I will do that for anybody. I will do that.
So
I get the $1 million though.
Fair, done. Okay, noted. I'll put it in your contract. All right, I'll put it in your contract.
You would never be the person writing my contract, so I just want you to understand that.
Hold on a second. I'd look out for you. Are you kidding me? What?
I understand that. Have you ever written a contract before?
I deal with them all the time.
Exactly.
Well, I read them all the time in Hollywood, like on shows I work on, films.
I read books.
I read
all
books
the time. I don't fucking write books.
I mean, okay. All right, you're an a-hole. All right.
Why?
All right. The recommendations this week, I mean, most people have access to Prime. Both we're going to be talking about The Substance and Conclave on 2 episodes a week. Those are both available to rent for, I think, when I rented them, they were $6. I think they're down to $4.99 now. So they're pretty accessible for most people. And you get them for 48 hours. From when you start it, that's when it ends. So I'm sure you have to find plenty of time. But I think people should start checking out some Oscar films. I would really hope so anyway, because both The Substance, one of these movies, Conclave and The Substance, I think is amazing. The other one is like, what is going on here?
Sure.
I don't understand a lot of the nominations it's getting, which is The Substance. I understand Demi Moore. I just don't understand the Best Picture nomination. But
yeah, no, that's fair.
So I think those are both available for you to watch. Both up for Best Pictures among many other Oscars this year. So it wouldn't be a bad way to spend a couple of bucks. All right, boys. Here's what I want to spend a little bit of time on is what is a Best Picture? In your mind, if a movie wins Best Picture, what does it say to you? And I think this year, more than other years, it's actually going to mean a lot more, the sliding scale of a definition. So I know what I think. I certainly have my own thoughts and have for many years, and I know you guys also have thoughts. So I would. So I'm going to start this off by saying, and Roger, I know you're going to call me out on this one because you usually do, but
Good.
I would say that I'm still in that old Hollywood mentality of like maybe like 2005 and earlier than that of if a movie wins Best Picture, then it is the best movie that was released in a major way that best exemplifies movie making, the process of cinema, making a movie. It best exemplifies that. But there have been so many years lately that I'm like, that movie does not equal that. And I'm confused. I'm very, very often very upset and angry. But like that's just it's just because like my definition of Hollywood hasn't shifted with the time, and it won't shift because like I'm a purist. Like here's looking at you, kid, and I think the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Like I'm a purist in that way. So I want to open the floor to you guys, and like I know you guys have different thoughts on the matter than I do.
Yeah. I think I have probably what was more closer to the average movie perspective, like of this average movie watcher, and the fact that like I don't know, I don't think it needs to be complicated. I think when I hear that something's Best Picture, I assume it's just going to be a very good, well-rounded film. However, doing the show with you guys, that has definitely shifted a little bit for me because it seems like it's usually not the well-rounded film, right? It's more of the movies that kind of really work to put themselves outside of the mold, or that are shocking, provocative, that kind of thing. Like that has been the trend, the last few years that I've been talking about movies with you guys. So beyond that, though, I for me, what makes a Best Picture movie, like personally, is a movie that sticks with me and affects me in a way that keeps me thinking about it. That's really what does it for me. But yeah,
absolutely.
So those are my first thoughts on it.
I agree with a lot of what you said when it comes to sticking to it. Now, in the last few years, especially, we've had a lot of stuff that gets lauded for being different or not necessarily towing an old Hollywood line, which is something that we've seen pop up depending on a lot of times the subject matter or who's in it or other various things along that line. If a movie doesn't resonate with me personally, I don't take offense to that or anything. Because like, look, watch a lot of movies here. Not every movie's for me, but every time I watch a Best Picture winner, or I try to watch in the last few years. I try to watch every nomination when it's possible for me. Now, like, look, sometimes it's just not okay, and that's okay. But like, when a movie wins Best Picture, I will absolutely make sure that I've at least watched it so I can have a fully formed opinion on it. Okay. Like I'm not a guy that will talk bad about something until I watch it. Like that's the only thing I ever ask people. Don't hate it until you watch it. After you watch it, you can hate the shit out of it. I don't care. Be universal hater. Go at it, buddy. Go at it. But you got to watch it first. Those are rules, like hard and fast, right? I think most people will agree with that as well.
Yeah, it's fair.
Yeah, like look, don't review bomb. Watch it first, then review bomb. Those are the rules. Okay. But like when it comes to a Best Picture winner, if I don't agree with it, that is fine. But like recently we've seen a couple of movies that have been nominated and that won quite a bit of awards, and I'll talk about here in a second. It's something that I still look back, a couple years later, I'm like, God damn, that's a really good movie. Which is something, we'll talk about Substance and Conclave. And Substance it's a wild ride. Conclave is a hell of a movie. And, me and Grace are going to talk about that here in a little bit. But, I don't have either problem with either one of those being nominated for certain reasons because I get why they are. It's just ultimately movies come down to some people like and don't like things. Like one of Grayson's favorite movies we talked about that me and Chris absolutely despise is Nomadland. Like, I think Nomadland is boring as shit. Like, I thought it was like 2 hours and 20-minute waste of my time. And like, look, I understand cinematography is fucking beautiful. That story is as interesting as watching fucking paint dry. Like, cool, man, you live in your van. Great. You made that choice. You weren't forced to do it. I don't care how hard your life is. You chose to do this, okay? Like that's how I feel about that. But like I understand why other people like it. It's just not for me. And the more these movies I watch and the more that I've done things along this line, I understand how I watch movies is different now. You know, like
True.
much like you know, Chris, you're finally coming. You know, you said recently you feel like you're finally getting into that where you know a lot of times you're like, well, that's not good. Even if it's entertaining, you're like, that's still pretty bad. Because like liking a movie and having a movie be good are not mutually exclusive. Okay,
Yeah.
you like I love a lot of bad movies.
Oh yeah.
Now my feeling is for like a Best Picture winner, I should at least be able to understand the point of the movie. I don't have to like it. But like, if I look at it and be like, "What the fuck was that?" I shouldn't have to utter those words.
Yeah. Yep.
Usually, you know, like I don't. Well, you got to look at the deeper meaning. Why? Why do I have to do that? I shouldn't have to do that. Like this is a movie. The deeper meaning should be in front of me in the form of a moving picture with words.
So let me ask you then. I
Sure.
mentioned the whole every now and then, like a well-rounded movie gets does get it. It happens. It happened more in the past. It happens less now, but it still does happen, or at least nominated for. I'd like to know if you guys can think of any. I can think of one.
I got a real good one.
Okay. Go ahead.
It's Coda.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Coda is it's heartwarming, it's funny, it's dramatic. Overall, from start to finish, Coda is a great movie. Like where there needs to be drama, there's drama. Where it's funny. And Coda is real. Like it's a real movie. Like I think when this is the movie I was going to mention, for like recent nominees and Best Picture winners, like I think Coda is damn near perfect. Because it checks all the boxes. It's like, look, you don't always get an Oscar winner or nominated movie that has a bit of humor in it. You don't always do that.
Yeah.
And Coda is like a really good mix of all that kind of stuff. So
I agree.
That's it. Coda is a very everyman Oscar winner. You know, like you know, a guy that watches 3 movies a year could watch Coda and be like, "Huh, it's pretty good."
Yeah.
And a guy that watches 600 movies a year be like, "Huh, Coda's pretty good." Like that's the kind of dichotomy you get with a movie like that. I think that is one of my more recent ones that I think checks every box for like Oscar perfection.
I would agree. What about you, Chris?
The Holdovers, actually.
Okay, sure.
Like I feel like that movie is like anybody can pick up that film and watch it and appreciate it for what that movie does and is. And it's like I don't want this to sound bad, but it's like it's a nice movie to watch.
Sure.
It doesn't require you to have this deep understanding of anything. That movie happens. Everything that happens on screen in that movie, it's almost like a breath of familiar air, I guess would be the way to say it. And I think the Holdovers would be my example of a movie that just is well rounded. It has its purpose. It gets to it, and it just really has a good story behind it. Is what drives it, and good performances.
Great choice, man. Like Holdovers is a good movie. So like the one thing that I think you'll realize whenever we talk about things like is much of the movies that we're going to pick, we're probably not going to think. Most people don't think are very pretentious, like fancy pinky up movies.
Yeah,
because like that's not really who we are. Now, again, I see why people enjoy some of those movies, but like a movie for like this year, like The Brutalist, which I have yet to watch, but like this movie's 3 hours and 40 minutes. And if I have to sit through a movie that's 3 hours and 40 minutes, me going, what the fuck?
That's a hard sell.
What are we doing? Like you're asking a lot. You're asking a lot of me. Like I'm going to expect a lot back.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing is, see, Conclave, as I've seen it now twice, and I've been kind of in my mind so Conclave to me is like, I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's boring. So Roger was talking about Nomadland. I think they're boring in different ways, but where Nomadland is, I think, boring, Conclave is like, it finds ways to make compelling what is otherwise like in a game, Conclave would be like a walking sim. I mean, it's just people talking about electing the new pope, but it's like there's drama in it, and it's wonderful, and it's beautiful, and all this wonderful stuff. But another movies like that to me are kind of one of those movies for me that was a kind of a wonderful surprise is Green Book. Like it's a movie I didn't really
good movie.
I didn't really consider from the trailer. And I know that it's like one that Roger and I have talked about Green Book is like we were both pleasantly surprised when that movie won because like we weren't angry. We're just like, okay, well deserved.
We just didn't expect that to be the winner. Green Book is a great movie.
I agree. And like a movie like Parasite is one that, and I want to harken back before I go on my Parasite. Before I talk more about Parasite, is Rogers I said something very important. Is we're not those guys. We're not those. This isn't that. But also, what I think is important to note here is like, especially when we're talking about Oscar films, is like this week, The Substance and Conclave is like this also isn't that show. It's like, and that's just. I do not. I will do what I have, and we've had this conversation behind the scenes, the three of us, many times. Like, I don't want this show to become like reading from a textbook about like what this shot meant and like what that shot meant. We're more about the feeling and how we felt about it and like how it sits in the greater atmosphere or the community of movies as a whole when it comes out, and how it makes it going down the road a few years. Looking back on it, is like I don't want to be that kind of what Chris and I always laugh call it the pinky up. I don't want that anywhere near our discussion of films. Like, I know that in the past we've had arguments like I kind of wanted to engineer like it's been, but again, my definition of what a good movie is has evolved a million times over the last couple years. Even, I mean, way more times than that since I was young and really started looking at films critically and reading books about them. And in college, I read all these essays by Pauline Kael about Citizen Kane and like these supposed excellent movies in Hollywood and like why they may not be so excellent. Like why Citizen Kane, why it's okay to not think Citizen Kane is the greatest movie in the world. Why it's okay to not agree with Casablanca. And those are okay. It's just.
What about Starship Troopers?
Oddly enough, I was just thinking about that movie. That's
Mortal
a movie
Kombat.
For me. Well, here's the thing about Starship. Okay, even Mortal Kombat in some similar ways, but also different, is like Starship Troopers to me is what we've gotten away from, and it's a shame. The 90s, the late 90s, to me is where movies peaked. Maybe up to like 2003 with Return of the King, because Return of the King still embodied all that stuff from the late 90s. Is a dramatic story. You're putting it's usually between a romance, a guy or girl that's kind of down on their luck. It's the Star Wars. It's the Star Wars kind of thing. It's like a guy who's down on it. He just gets thrust into an adventure. Like Starship Troopers, because you brought it up, is that same thing. Johnny Rico has his girlfriend doesn't quite want to be with him. He loses his family in a random meteor that hits his tiny town on the planet. But he loses his family.
A tiny town. He lived in Sao Paulo, Brazil, which is one of the most populous cities on the planet.
No, Buenos Aires is where he lived. I'll have you know.
That was in Sao Paulo.
No,
sure.
Okay. Yeah, it was Buenos Aires.
Still big giant.
But like the point is like. It's just, and then he gets thrust into this thing, and then it culminates on. It does the dramatic music flourishes twice. Once when in the possible fort defense when they're fighting off millions of bugs and they're fall back into the compound, and then the super dramatic dun 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 like instrumental comes up, and then in the end when they're in the cave is like, to me, and maybe it's because that's when I was young and like really a super young teenager into it, like that is like the dramatic flourish, the big budget, the stars, the chiseled jaw, like that to me is Hollywood, man. That's and so like we've gotten away from it, I think, and things evolve and that's fine. But
so from what I'm hearing from you is we should give a
Casper Van Dien every movie. Yes.
No. I have a better thing. So we should retroactively award RoboCop like 7 Oscars.
Yeah,
because that shit is awesome.
Well, depending on how these Oscars go, I have a very, very sinking feeling that, because I know there's a huge movement now in the video game awards that like we're getting away from people. Like I think next year, or maybe as soon as like next year or the year after, we're gonna have like a YouTube channel is gonna do the real game awards. I have a feeling that's what's coming. I have a feeling that's what's coming for films too. Is like, no, we're not. Are you? Because like the front runner.
I wish you wouldn't give away our next future show ideas.
Thank you very much. I think that because the big nominee this year, Emilia Perez, is I've watched it twice and I cannot understand for the life of me, if framed in the right light, why it's received so many nominations. I think it's okay. I think it's okay to good, maybe great. It isn't excellent, and that's kind of my problem. But looking back is like this. I think Top Gun Maverick to me Had Top Gun Maverick and Everything Everywhere All at Once come out in 2018, would have swept. Every Oscar was available, this would have taken, bar none. It's like it's a shift, and like the country went in a certain way, and it's all that plays into the climate of things, and that's fine. But again, it's like, and then the year before that, Coda is another movie like Green Book that, like, I saw it, I was blown away by Coda. It just completely blown away from, and that was a movie that wasn't really on a movie that Roger and I like was on our radar until, because that was an Apple TV film. Yeah.
Yep, an Apple film.
Like, that was an Apple TV film. They're like, okay, well, we'll check that out this week, and not the big Netflix film. And so it just blew me away. Like, I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. And going back to Parasite, here's the thing with, and again, what Roger, you just said, is like a Best Picture nomination, a Best Picture winner, a Best Picture winner shouldn't also be the most Googled thing of that year. Why is Parasite good? That was one of the most Googled things of that year. Why is Parasite so good?
You shouldn't need a follow-up essay to tell me why your shit won.
Well, hold
I
on.
100% agree with that.
Well, hold on. That was the that one was a foreign film though, right? So
it was Korean. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of people that are going to look up like before they commit to watching anything subtitled, because if it ain't in English, we ain't watching it in America, baby. But like, there's a lot of people that they're going to look up to see what it's about before they go, all right, I'm gonna read for an hour and a half. You know what I mean? Like, that's just a part of that. So I would say that one has a little bit more than usual because of that reason. But I do get your point, Grace, and I think something to call out is, like, we talked about how well-rounded films don't get Oscar noms very much, and then we talked about, like, some things are wild. I liked Everything Everywhere All at Once. You guys didn't. You know what I mean? So it's like,
hold on. I did subjective. Like it. I didn't think it was Best Picture winner. That's all. Like it's just fine.
Yeah. See, I really enjoyed that film, and again, it was for the criteria, not because it was a perfect movie, or it wasn't well rounded, but it affected me in a way that I saw as positive for a multiple day stint after I saw it. So I think that movie like Parasite, it's impactful to people and it sticks with them. And after seeing it, I can see why. It's just not every movie is everyone's cup of tea. I think it's more interesting to think about what movies are talked about because they check specific Hollywood boxes. You know what I mean? Like I think that exists more than perfect filmmaking, if there is such a thing.
Well, like, that's interesting you say that, because that, like, what checks the Hollywood box is, it's also changed. Before 2020, what checked the Hollywood box? Conclave, for example, checks those boxes. Mm-hmm, it has all those moving pieces. It has, an amazing stellar cast, stellar script. Like, it's one of those movies that, but since then, things have shifted because of the political climate of the country, because of what happened. Whatever it happened, like, things have shifted, and evolution is good. It brings change. That's kind of where but like what you just said about Everything Everywhere All at Once, I feel about Top Gun, and maybe that's because I'm a big I didn't need Top Gun explained to me. But again, Everything Everywhere All at Once was a very popular Google of Everything Everywhere All at Once explained was a very popular, extremely popular Google search that year.
Yeah.
That wasn't, because it was a straightforward story, like Starship Troopers, for example. It was a straightforward story with wonderful score, with wonderful narrative, with characters that, as odd as it might seem what I'm about to say, they seemed real, and the stakes felt real, and it was a great sequel. And to me, it's like Hollywood's willing to give all these awards for a number of reasons, but in 2022, when there were several weeks when the box office combined wasn't over $5 million. They weren't willing to give a movie that was on many lists awards to save Hollywood, to get people back in. So this did what, 1.5, right?
Yeah.
Billion. Mm-hmm. Had it won Best Picture, that would have easily passed $2. I mean, if it went back in theaters for a month, that would have passed $2 billion. Sailed right past it, flown right past it. But it's like, it's a weird thing to me that you're going to give awards to movies that maybe not earn it, but not a movie to save Hollywood. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And if you're going to go with this narrative about, well, if it makes the short list, then any of those movies can win. Fine. But again, that goes against, to me, it's baffling. And Chris, I know that, like, Everything Everywhere All at Once hits you. Like I'm just saying, like, that movie
Yeah,
hit me
I
like
gotcha.
Everything Everywhere All at Once hits you. And it's just
Well,
one
yeah,
of those things is we just see it differently.
Well, I mean, I don't disagree that Maverick, that Top Gun Maverick, should have gotten more recognition, and should have qualified for that standard, within its own category and merits. I just think that there are certain movies that check certain boxes. You know what I mean? And
Sure, and
the, I don't know. Top Gun was like Top Gun Maverick was a fantastic film. I mean,
Fucking awesome.
I think the three of us were all really high on that film when we talked about it. You know what I mean? And it's like,
The unveiling of Handsome Glenn to the world, baby.
the summer of Handsome Glenn, baby.
Yeah.
That was last year.
Oh, that was last year. Okay.
Yeah. But it's one of those things where, again, I think it's almost just like the subject matter versus the main audience group, that it's just like, this movie isn't going to change things, or doesn't like bring like that shock value. It's not even shock value. It's just like it doesn't go outside the box, that Hollywood wants things to land outside of, generally, to be considered
right.
this way.
You're right, and it's like, to me, it's Conclave, a movie we'll talk about later in the episode, or on a separate episode. Is like The King's Speech is a movie that, like, great cast, stellar script, a movie that moves well and keeps you engaged and is compelling, though there's no action. There's no, like, firefight or World War fight, or it's about a king who cannot talk and someone who's coaching him to be able to deliver speeches to the nation. That's literally what that's about. And like, that's such a good movie. Same with Conclave, though. I mean, Conclave, when you break it down, is just it's about, okay, well, what's it about? Well, the Pope dies, and one guy is kind of moderating electing a new pope, but like there's more to it than just that. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, like cardinals that just rip vapes. It's fucking rad.
Like, again, it's like Oppenheimer. I'm really glad Oppenheimer won last year too, because like it's a movie that I think, at least for me, it's like it's big budget, huge cast, really great ideas, and there's a through line that you understand, and you didn't have to Google you didn't have to Google Oppenheimer explained, or most people didn't, because you understood it. Like, that's the thing, is like a movie shouldn't have to be explained to you if it's a Best Picture winner, and that's just like, to me, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Parasite is one of those. I can see the argument for Nomadland. I can absolutely see the argument of people saying that about Nomadland as well. The Shape of Water, for one, is like, that's kind of a weird. Moonlight is one that people are like, what the hell? Why did Moonlight win? But
the problem with Moonlight is nobody saw Moonlight.
Yeah.
And according to Warren Beatty, La La Land won that year. So
that's crazy.
Amazing. Just because he like wanted it to.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, this is a different. We're running along in this conversation. We can get on this in another episode, but I think it's a wonderful episode one day to talk about like Best Picture winners, like what would actually happening. Like Birdman's another one of those. I'm glad it won, but sometimes I wonder how it won.
Yep, Birdman's a strange one.
Same, but yeah. So over the next couple of weeks, guys, I want to like kind of like explore what is a Best Picture winner, what does that mean, and like kind of different kind of avenues as we talk about some of these Oscar films. And so thank you for that. I'm really excited to like get into that, especially with you guys, because that's something that we've never really done, is talk about that. And I'm kind of like, we've always kind of gotten away from that conversation, but I am super excited. But without further ado, I keep saying adieu. That's not right. Adieu. Adieu.
Adieu, the stuff you dip your sandwich into.
Yes, thank you.
Dude, I'm hungry right now. Let's get
going. I'm over on the counter. I have a muffin waiting for me, and I have some oatmeal, and I'm super excited. I can't not until
you have like oatmeal, like cold oatmeal.
No. Like it's hold on. It's oats in a bowl, and I'll just heat some water up.
Okay, I thought like you had like prepared.
They're
was gonna sit there for like another half hour or whatever. Like ew.
No.
It's like a fucking wallpaper paste.
No. Let's talk about The Substance.
Let's do it.
Boy, what an odd movie The Substance is. Holy.
All right, before we talk about it, Grace, do the particulars first, and I have one question I want to fire up before we get into anything film discussion. Okay.
Why don't you fire it up? Because I had particulars for the other one up first. So let me go ahead and fire that up.
With a movie like The Substance, would you do it?
No. The answer is no.
Why?
As soon as I know there was a needle involved, I'm done.
Okay, I thought you were gonna say as soon as I know what happens. I'm like, well, you can't look at it like that. Well, Chris?
Okay, go ahead.
I'm not I wasn't. I mean, Yeah, I was a few pounds lighter in my youthful days,
Mhm.
but I don't think I was a better person in my youthful days compared to who I am.
Probably not.
You know what
Probably
I
not.
mean?
Okay. Well, let me pose one thing, and I think
Yeah,
this will be relative or pertinent to our future discussion about
yeah,
this
yeah.
movie. Is I don't think you being a better person actually matters or not.
Nope.
Well, that would be my mindset going into considering it, right? Because that's how it was pitched to
Okay.
her. You know what I mean? Like, like
Okay.
it talks about youthful youth and all this other stuff, renewal, and I just I'm very so I'm very much an in the moment kind of person, which
Okay.
most men are that way too. But like
Sure.
I just I don't think going back like would do me any benefits. I don't think having that duality would bring me any value. And so
Okay.
I think it's, and again I'm cheating because I know what happens in the movie and like
Sure. Well, yeah. So you're not supposed to let that affect you.
I know it's hard not to have a subconscious
Sure.
bias though to
Of
that. So,
course.
but
Of course.
I think in the end, clean slate in my brain as much as I can. I don't think I'd do it for those reasons, and also for a
Okay.
little bit of Grayson's. I don't like needles, so I don't think
True.
so. I get very nervous about taking vitamins. I could imagine taking
Taking
something that I'm not.
vitamins.
Yep. I get a little nervous about doing it correctly and
You know they
stuff.
make
So
them in like gummy bears now, right? Like
I have
this-
gummy vitamins.
Or look. I'm not gonna because like that's the reason why millennials are gonna live forever because Flintstone vitamins. So I mean, like
You're right. Yeah.
I got no
Hey,
qualms
listen,
with
you can
vitamins.
still get Flintstone vitamins.
You can.
This
You
is
can
true.
definitely still get.
Like as an adult, like they still function for like 90% of what you need anyway.
That's the thing,
Anyway,
it's-
to answer
it's
your
the needle
question-
that I can't deal with
Yeah,
the needle.
answer
Oh my
question.
God.
No, for multiple reasons, but I think mainly it's because I don't think it is desirable for me, like what the effects could bring, no matter what they would be.
Okay. The only reason I don't think I would either, but
Yeah.
the only thing that I can think of is like, what if you don't know how like when you like split out, like what
Mhm.
age you're like rewinding to?
Yeah.
Because like there's a big difference between like me at 22, me at 30.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like there's
Well,
a big
Yep.
gap there.
yeah.
Like the
Yeah,
person,
that's what I
like,
mean.
and I just mean physically too, like not like my
Oh, yeah.
mental headspace. Like me when the day I graduated college is a lot different than like what like 30 years old. Like there's a
Yeah.
big difference somewhere
Oh,
in there,
yeah.
and like 25's different. Like all
Mhm.
kinds of shit. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know.
Well, I don't.
I'm with you on that.
The movie's pretty unclear about the rules here. This is my big. The movie has to set up the rules very clearly, and this
Mhm.
one doesn't at all.
It
It just
do-
kind
it
of
does
it just
not.
rolls with the punches, and like there's nothing. There's
I
no.
always just figured like when she splits out
parameters.
because she's 50 when it happens or when she
Mhm.
does it. I always just figured that like she's either 25 or 30. It's either 20 years back or half her life, right?
Yeah, something like that.
That's kind of how I figured it to be.
Yeah, well, it probably lands that way because that's what the casting ad was, 18 to 30. So
yeah,
she's got to
that's
be in that range.
that's kind of
So,
why. Yeah, that's why I figured somewhere right in there.
So here's the thing about the substance is like, it's. I understand what it's going for, and like I understand the pitch of this movie, but I was deeply uncomfortable almost the whole time watching.
It's
this
a
movie.
wild ride, man.
It is a wild ride. But let's look at some particulars real quick. So, and I think it's a kind of just a barometer, a grain of salt barometer. But like, so what do you guys think the Rotten Tomatoes? If you had to guess, the tomato meter and the popcorn
It's
meter.
pretty high. It's like high 80s.
yeah. That's something-
89 tomato meter and 75 on the popcorn meter, which is
Okay.
the people.
That's fair.
And the
Yeah.
Metacritic sitting at a very strong 78. That's a very strong number.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's huge.
Wow. That's a big number.
Big number for a big movie. So let's talk about some casting choices. So Demi Moore, Margaret Qualley, Dennis Quaid. Which can we talk about his wonderful walk for 1 second? That
Dude,
might be
he's
my
so-
favorite.
Dude,
the
like
way,
look,
the
I
way
just
he's
want you to
pounding the
understand,
floor.
Yeah.
he is like I know I've already talked about wrestling once today, but if you've ever watched like old school wrestling with like Vince McMahon, like that's exactly where that came from.
Yeah.
Well, like,
you're
I-
right. You're right.
What decade would that be from? The 80s?
No, like mid 2000s.
Okay, so like to me, this I was kind of because like there are parts I'm like this is definitely like it's the 80s mentality in today. That's kind of how I kind of saw it. Like now that you mentioned wrestling, I was like, oh that could fit. But so
Sure,
Demi
could,
Moore,
yeah.
Margaret Qualley, Dennis Quaid are the namers here.
That's really
Um,
it. Yeah.
The substance is it's about quite a few things. obviously, I mean, it's when you finish the movie, it's very obviously about it's addiction, and also it's about a woman trying to stay youthful and relevant in Hollywood, which isn't always easy. And a little
Which
bit
is
of
something we are
background.
very qualified to talk about too, by the way.
Extremely.
Yeah.
I did work I did an internship, of course, at Paramount Pictures, and I also did another one that summer. I was very busy the summer of 2008, but I did an internship also with the casting director, which right on Wilshire Boulevard, right in the heart of downtown, right in the heart of Hollywood. And it's what I learned that summer is that men have a much larger window of like getting big and staying big based on their look. Women have a much smaller window, and that's just kind of, and that was back in 2008. Important to note that, but I learned a lot of interesting things that summer, and I think this movie kind of really is talking about some of those things, especially with because a lot of the comments are very sexist comments directed at women aging out very quickly, and like you just toss them away when they're done. Like it's just a lot of the comments are kind of going in that direction, and it's like this is an interesting movie when you put it all together. But first impressions when it's done, I was relieved because I don't know how much more of the needle I could have taken. I don't know how much more of the jamming into her back, and I can't.
By the end of that, it was like, yee.
And
Not great, Bob.
So when I was younger, I had to take this artificial human growth hormone because I didn't get, my body was like weird and like it didn't generate it for so many years. So I was taking.
I love that you said was.
Thank you. Like I had to take a shot every night in my legs and in my butt cheeks, and it got to the point where it was, especially when I was in middle school, I was 6th grade when I first started, like just out of elementary school, I would cry because it hurt so fucking bad some nights because it was so tender, because you can only do so many spots and you can only rotate so many, and my parents were just like, it would kill them to have to help me do the shot because it was very not fun to give a shot in a place that was super tender.
I like how we've come full circle on our podcasting career, where we're now talking about tender cheeks on the podcast.
Tender cheeks.
Just for context.
I have a lot of stuff that I have to talk about now. I'm going to shift out my entire idea of talking about this movie to talk about Grayson's sweet butt cheeks.
That's going to be the name of the episode, Tender Cheeks.
Listen, I get to name the episodes on at least one of the platforms. So
episode 15, Tender Cheeks. Thank you very much.
Grayson's Tender Cheeks.
There we go. So I'm not a big fan of needles either. Like I'm a big baby when I gotta go do blood work and stuff like that, but it's that didn't bother me in this film beyond like the first 1 or 2 times I saw it. And I think maybe it's because, I don't know, it's either A, because I've been watching a lot of House in my free time, and I've been trained via
great show, by the way.
Oh, 100%. I've been trained via lumbar punctures, or the movie does a good job of numbing you to it, which I think is a part of kind of like what they're speaking to. At least a section of it is like becoming numb to what is grossly necessary to achieve what Demi Moore's character is trying to achieve, and her counter self Sue in this as well. You know what I mean? They both have different agendas that are stemming from the same like consciousness, I guess is what you can say with the way the movie explains it. But in the end, it's you do things that are gross, disgusting, abhorrent, all in a very like psyche affecting kind of way to achieve some of these things. And I think that's what it's
to stay where you're at, not even necessarily move forward, just to stay where you're at sometimes.
Just to cling on, to hold on.
Speaking of things that are grossly unnecessary, probably, can we speak about when they're doing the transition and the feeding and everything? Why do they just leave each other like naked on the bathroom floor?
So hold on.
But then they build a room and then they just leave them lumped in the floor naked in the dark room.
I thought that as well. And I don't think anything in this movie is an accident, right? Like it's all a piece of the storytelling. And what that said to me, the way that I interpreted that is that like it's a discarding of oneself, and it's almost like having like each version of herself has a disdain for the other one, for its own reasons. And I think that's mainly what we're seeing there is, like it's on the floor, it's left there, it's left to rot because currently the only thing that matters is the one that's active in what they want.
Okay, sure.
And the visage of the other one is a reminder of what they are. So like, when she is young and vibrant and sees herself on the floor, it's everything that she's trying to abandon and trying to like leave behind. And then when the converse happens, when it's her older self looking at her now the younger version of herself, it's almost like a resentment, like, she's chasing that, but at the same time she will never be that again, so it's almost like a resentment towards it. So
Okay.
I think the vitriol is shown in leaving it there on the floor.
I think it's difficult to, again, it's one of those things where the movie doesn't quite lay out the parameters as it should, because when it's happening, I'm not sure the characters are acting with any kind of logic, but that's part of the addiction, is like you often do not when you have an addiction. You do whatever you got to do to make sure you get that fix. And especially within the kind of the bigger picture here of like what she's trying to accomplish is, again, to me, it's like I was questioning kind of, I know what wasn't real, but like sometimes I was questioning like, well, within the not real, is there something else that I'm supposed to realize isn't real either? And I was wondering when it was going to like snap out of it, or when it was going to like come back to that moment where, she didn't, maybe it's like, I thought maybe she was going to go back to like, she's standing at that door, that weird, by the way, like, could you make a more creepy looking, suspect looking doorway in an alley? Like, I don't think you could.
No.
Low foot traffic.
Yeah, that's for sure. So I mean, I was, again, very uncomfortable, but I think that's what they wanted. I think that's part of the allure of the film, is like that's what you want to make. You want to make people feel comfortable, so they talk about it.
Yeah, and I don't think you're supposed to be done with your viewing of The Substance and be like, you know what, cool.
I think if you watch Substance,
I feel good about that.
I think if you watch a Substance and you're not uncomfortable, you may have a problem. You may have a problem.
Oh,
I mean, seriously, you may have a problem. But I was deeply uncomfortable the entire time out, like to the point where like I was squirming. I can't, and I'm not really off put by much. Chris, you talk about House, like I'll watch that show and I won't even squirm once. It's never lupus. It's never lupus.
Actually, one time on House,
one time it is, and that's the
one
joke.
time it is.
The joke.
Yeah. Like that's
the joke.
Make.
But it's just, so my first impressions were, the movie it got me to talk about it. It got me to think about it, talk about it. So it achieves what it set out to do. And I can understand why it's on a list. I don't understand why, if it wins, I'm going to be like, why did that win? This is not exemplary filmmaking this is not the film that when you look at it like this, that's the best thing we made this year. That's the best thing that came out this year. Like, that's my problem. But like, I understand the nomination for Demi Moore, who does a wonderful job.
Sure.
Oh,
it's great.
Yeah.
Even the younger version of herself does a wonderful job. Even those little kind of inflections of how they'd feel at a certain point, like they nail that. And that's, I think, an achievement. But let's go into how it, again, I want to go into like how this cues up and how it happens is like Elizabeth Sparkle, especially when
hell of a name, baby. Hell of a name.
When we start and end with the star, I think is great. I mean, I walk over them all the time. That's on, there's many streets in Hollywood. Like I walk over them all the time, and it's, to get your name in that would be pretty goddamn awesome. I gotta say, it'd be pretty cool to get a Hollywood star. But she was younger and like what looks to be like this, almost like an 80s Jazzercise type deal.
Yeah.
Yep.
Kind of builds her fame that way. But like it just, beauty doesn't last forever, and she knows it. And she starts to like hear chatter, and like maybe she's getting too old, and the Quaid character is wonderful because he is an absolute pig. Like
he's every Hollywood scumbag you've ever imagined caricatured like all into one person.
And his walk, I had not laughed so hard in a long time. You remember that long hallway?
Oh yeah,
the orange hallway where he's like, "Hey, we haven't seen you around here for some time. We all pitched in and got you a little something to say how we were feeling about you."
A French cookbook in French, by the way.
And then he walks down the hall in such a douchebag way. Like, you'd really have to try to walk more of an asshole than he walked. But like I thought it was hilarious. He like saunters down and like it's just walking like he owns the fucking world, and that's exactly what they're going for. Is the men in this movie are completely chauvinistic, and everything is about looks, and nothing matters otherwise other than like the look of someone. And like just I get that's what they're
You don't
doing,
think she was getting fired because her jazzercise routines weren't good enough?
I don't think that was the issue. I'm sure they were bringing in plenty of money, but they just wanted a younger version to keep current with the audiences. And
also, I have a question though. Is like
Shoot.
in real life Hollywood, which I know obviously this is not that, is how much? What are the ratings? What ratings are you supposed to get for a morning aerobics class on TV?
Anymore. That's why I think the oldest they took the old aesthetic and combined it with today's world.
Well, so that's one thing that I did think about legitimately, right? Because when Sue shows up and like they're tearing everything out of the studio or whatever, and they're like, we have to have a meeting right now, and he's like, the old ratings were 7, and everybody's like, yeah, and he's like, and now the new ratings have come out, and he's like, it's 200. I'm like, what the fuck does that even mean? Like you can't get more than 100 share.
It doesn't. That's the thing is I don't think it does matter. I think it's just
100 means like percentage, right? Like isn't that how that works? Yeah.
But like I think the point that he's like it's 200 is he's just being that guy who's he doesn't look at anything else
super fakey guy. No, that's okay. I thought it also might be that way because I'm just like, okay, sure. I mean, I guess I legitimately was just overthinking that anyway. So,
but again, in a lot of the same ways of Deadpool and Wolverine, I think there's actually 7 minutes of actual movie in this movie. It's like because like I don't quite care so much for the transformation and like the coming out of the body and like none of that makes. I mean, I get what they're going for. It just to me like
you don't like the long drawn out shots of butts and crotches.
I thought it was a weird choice. Again,
I mean,
think
it's a choice. It's definitely a choice.
Well, I mean, we saw this last year with Emma Stone's movie, right? Where
Poor Things, sure.
Yeah, so I think it's again. I don't think you need to have nudity to have a Best Picture. I think I think what I'm saying is that it's an artistic medium, and sometimes like again the like everything they show you isn't. Like nothing's on accident here, so those long shots of all that it's supposed to mean something.
It's for a reason, sure.
You know what I mean? And sometimes it's I think it's to elicit that that normal ass reaction of seeing someone who has a body like that, and then eventually it becomes this thing where it's like you see it so much that it stops mattering. You know what I mean? And I think it's speaking
just desensitized to it.
Yeah, I think it's trying to lean towards that realm of it's like eventually this doesn't matter. That like the only person that sees this are themselves. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just more pieces of what this movie is. It's like trying to say. Maybe I don't know if it's successful in that round or if I'm even close to on base, but that's just the way it talks to me.
So I definitely have a feeling that a similar feeling to that, because talk about nudity for just a second, because like there is a lot of nudity in this movie, but it never so to me, like it never felt like weird. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because when the transformations happen, or the first, when she's first born, basically, that feels totally natural. Mm-hmm. And then every other time that they go through it, it's never anything just like, oh, well, they're naked. Well, it's just, it's just how it continues to be because of what they're doing. And it never feels like overly weird, and like after like the first, second time, just like, yeah, okay, whatever. Yeah. It's just part of the movie at that point.
Exactly. So,
which, I mean, I guess that's for a good thing.
So. Yeah, and again, them being like bare like that when like during the transformation process, no matter what side it's on. Again, it's they get to see the entire self of the person that they're that they're leaving. So I think again that feeds into that whole like that building resentment thing in different ways. Like she sees what she's doing to her to the older version, and in doing so. She's acknowledged, she sees it. She acknowledges that she's taking from her, and that it's like, well, why does she need it? When it keeps me looking this way, this is the way it should be. And then
there's a price to be paid.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and then the reverse happens.
Toll, baby.
The reverse happens when her older self is on the phone. After she's half, like leper sized, and. He says, if you stop now, everything will end, and what's been taken is already gone.
Yeah,
And
like
then
you can't go back. There is no going back.
And then her immediate reaction is, well, I can't stop because like she's too far gone. She's committed at this point to where like
very addict mentality.
now she needs
sure.
that younger side to have any modicum of success, in that way, because now she can't be seen out there. So it's her which her true self has gotten uglier, and now she can't let anybody see it. I think it speaks to that.
That's Hollywood, baby. Is like you can't do any kind of intellectual studying of old Hollywood, like 30s, 40s, 50s, even up to the 60s and 70s, without realizing that like all the women in those films are all young. You don't see many unless it's a role for an older secretary or an older, like you don't see it. You never will. You never did. It's just the thing is like, well, so that's part of it is. And I love the eggs thing, which of course to me means MGS4, but the eggs with the that was interesting to me. It's like you put something into it and then something comes out. What it is though, you don't really know, but that's why I thought was interesting to open the film with the eggs before we even got to the star.
Yeah.
Was that the first thing we saw was the eggs and they're injecting something into it. I thought that was really kind of a cool way to show that.
Well, it shows you instead of tells you. It explains so much in that opening, and you don't forget that because it's your initial impression. So then, like and they double back on that visual right when the transformation is happening with her eye pupil separating. Right, you know what I mean? So it's like the same rounded object within a round object separates, and it reminds you, okay, this was one egg, and now it just becomes two. So, it's not like, she's taking parts of herself to make it happen. She's literally duplicating, and that's what it accomplishes, which defies the laws of alchemy, by the way.
Of course, it defies every law.
Yeah, equivalent exchange must happen according to Edward Elric, in Full Metal Alchemist. So, like, this is already way off its face, but, I digress.
We've already discussed this.
Again, the movie there's no parameters here. Like, for instance, when she's when she's in the exam room and she's really not doing well because she's understanding right just before then, I think is when she has to go to the bathroom really bad. So she steps in the guy's restroom because it's available. And then that's when the Jack or the Quaid character comes strolling like he owns the world right in the camera, by the way.
That fishbowl camera, yeah.
Yeah, it's
what we see a lot of that in this movie, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And his conversation on the phone is she won an Oscar for King Kong. Like, that doesn't mean anything now. It's again the King Kong thing then becomes relevant much later in the film. And then she hears everything, but he's like, "Oh, she's 25. Bro, toss her. Like you can't like not exact words, but kind of the gist of the conversation is."
Well, I mean, the King Kong reference I think is actually a little bit deeper too, in the regard of the monster takes hold of the maiden. You know what I mean? And that's
grabs a hold.
The monster of addiction, I think, is what another like
there's also another way to. Well, that was what I was going, but there's another way to look at that too. As also is I mean, we'll get to that, but it's he's like, oh, they lose after a certain age. Oh, she's 25. You better get on it. Like meaning she loses fertility, or she's not castable, or she's gonna lose her look. Something after 25 is But what the point is, he was being an asshole, pig-headed about it. Like he's not. Yeah. And that's kind of that character. But how fun would it be to play a guy like that, where the director's like, be as much of a prick, say as much of a prickish thing as you can say.
Be the biggest scumbag you think you can be.
He's just scummy. You know what I mean?
Just scummy. Then right after that is when they go. He's eating the shrimp in the lens, in the fishbowl lens.
Well, like the shrimp. The shrimp is something too. The shrimp, shrimp are they're bottom feeders. And it's literally what what those guys of his caliber were back then. They preyed on young women, and they benefited from from the way that they looked, their talents and such. And once they're done with them, they move to the next one. And it's there are a lot of well placed hidden meanings within this movie.
Oh, I mean, very well. Yes, there are. And I had a thought, and I'll keep it to myself until we talk about Amelia Perez. But
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I think this movie's actually it's a better movie, I think, than Amelia Perez. It's getting a whole lot less praise, which to me is a very strange thing.
It happened in May.
I can't comment on that. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
But it's so. I like what they've done with this, and I think there's a little too much of the back and forth between the old self and the new self, but I get like a lot of that's I to me, now this is just my personal opinion, you guys may think differently, but to me it's when my favorite things are when the old version is trying to rationalize things and the young version is trying to rationalize things, none of which ever come to a real conclusion, but you don't when you're in that state of mind. You absolutely are not thinking straight, and neither one of them aren't making any decisions that leads to any long-term benefits for either one of them, which
Sure.
I get. Like if you take the analogy of like the young woman who finds great success in Hollywood, but the older she gets, she has to keep having, doesn't have to, but she opts to have, which is like very out here in LA, you opt to have plastic surgery or nip tuck kind of thing. And it's like, you have all these things. And I like that kind of pay at the plant payoff of eventually your body's going to get to a point where like, you just
You
can't
can only do
hide
it so
anymore.
often. Yeah.
Which is why I don't think anyone should ever do anything to their bodies. That's just my personal standpoint. But it's a very common thing out here. And since I've been out here, I learned that like most high school girls out here have had work done. It's like, to me, that is not okay. But again, I'm not commenting. But even as young as that, it's like, so this movie is commenting on something that is true that we see every day, especially in Hollywood, which is why I think this movie is so popular among people, because like everyone gets the analogy. No one's not understanding the analogy here, which is again why I think The Substance is doing very well, is because like it's a movie that's easily digestible, and depending on where you're coming from, it is kind of grotesque, but it's fun.
Well, it's body horror. You know what I mean? Like it's definitely that.
Well, like, okay, let me ask you this:
I don't know if digestible is the right word to use to describe it.
Sure. How would you? What genre would you say? I would say this is a horror film.
Horror comedy.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep, no, I see it. No. I mean, in all, all jokes aside, I think it's horror / body horror / sci-fi ish, because it's got some.
Sure, it could be that.
It's got an element of that to it.
I've been doing a lot of talking, but one thing I want to ask you guys is like, I'm not crazy, and the movie doesn't really set up any rules of whatever she's using. It's just she obeys the cards or the notes inside for each thing. I have two questions. How does she know what to do with some of this stuff? It's pretty vague, and like there's just a tube with a needle and a thing. How do you know where to stick it and like what?
You just know.
Well, do you? I mean, does the addict know what what the needle is used for? Okay, I guess that's.
I mean, like, look, somebody wrapped herself up.
Sure.
Hit her with the old tourniquet, so it's not a first run down the needle line. I'm just saying.
I'm not crazy in the fact that there's not really any rules established here.
No, there's no end game either. Like, how long do you let this go on? And like the repercussions of something like this, legitimately, are astronomically bad. Because like, imagine your younger self splits off, especially if you're a lady, okay? And then she gets pregnant.
Yeah. What do you do? Like that's again. Again, a question that like I know it's not really happening that way, but again, it's something...
No, it's not really that serious. But like those are weird things that I thought about during this movie.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. But like, I thought about it too when she had the guy over. So it was like, okay, is this the next step of this movie where it's going? But it doesn't need to be more complicated than it is.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
It does a good job of that all on its own with what it has.
I think the complication throreshold is damn near met. It's like what you're trying to tell, and like I think it's right there with like you can't really do any more with it without it being a much longer movie.
It's already pretty long at 222, so
it is fairly 220. I did notice it was much longer than I thought it was going to be.
Okay,
well, so I mean, again, though, we do get a lot of like long drawn out shots of things that definitely add up in time here. Yeah, I don't think that's bad. I don't think it's too long here, but it's lengthy. It's a runner.
So I was in on this movie until about the 1 hour and 40-minute mark hits, because then this movie goes off of a cliff, in my opinion, in just its delivery and presentation, and it becomes what feels like it's not trying to be, but it reminds me of like Everything Everywhere All at Once all of a sudden, where all of a sudden we are out of the realm of sci-fi and horror and mystery and into the realm of
Let's get wacky.
some really weird shit on screen, right? I mean, basically when she becomes the Hunchback of
Monstro.
Monstro specifically, but even her herself, she becomes like the Hunchback of Notre Dame, like Quasimodo looking thing. You know what I mean? Like this is before Monstro happens, and it's like even that
Sure.
was like okay, she's also really strong like that because she's just effortlessly dragging a body down a very long bathroom hallway. So it's like this movie definitely takes a dive all of a sudden for me, where like it was in the realm of suspension of disbelief, but then all of a sudden it's definitely off of the deep end, trying to either like hammer its message home, or it didn't like where it's ending is the statement, and it's just not one that I became strangely disinterested in what the movie was saying after that point. Like I could connect to the person as a human character. I could connect to both of the leads here as the people they are and what they're going through, like from either side. But then all of a sudden, like I became strangely disconnected from like what was happening. And maybe that's what it's going for. Maybe it wants you like once women in Hollywood like get to a certain point, like maybe and like they're affected in these ways by this kind of stuff. Maybe it's like people don't care anymore, and maybe that's what it's saying, or maybe that's what it like it did to me. But the movie becomes a whole different thing, and it was far more interesting before it got to that point. After that, it's a lot of very just jarring statement pieces and very just on screen weird shit that just really does tank the experience, in my opinion, for me.
Like the last 4 minutes, it's straight out of like Doom Eternal.
Yeah,
he's fighting an amalgamation that's just spraying blood everywhere with the ripping metal music going on. So look, I've been down this road before.
The metal music was a weird choice. You know what I mean? So it's definitely just a strange bit. But I'm interested in what you guys think.
I think so. Obviously, there are some things in this movie where we see on screen that don't actually happen in real life. Obviously, like there are several instances of these. Now, the only problem that I have with the last bit of it, now, like, look, I am 100% with you. It goes way outside of anything we'd seen to this point in the movie. Totally off the rails. Okay. There is no distinct line that we see where like we know that this did or didn't actually happen. Like. And what I mean by that is if you, dear viewer, if you ever do watch this movie, there's a point where she is filming an episode of her show and she bends over and like a thing pops up on her side, like right above her butt. Mm-hmm. And like, so she runs into the bathroom and like moves this thing around in her body and reaches into her own belly button to pull out a fully cooked, delicious looking chicken drumstick. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then she snaps awake immediately. So to completely imply that was a dream, right? Which makes sense because they actually bounced that kind of thing back and forth 2 or 3 times in the movie. At the end here, where we are the Monstro hybrid Eliza mashed together with faces and underdeveloped ears and like a boob popping out of your second mouth hole.
So weird.
We don't ever have a point where we know that this did or didn't happen. So I like to go under the assumption that it's real and happened on live television. So hell yeah, brother. Because like, look, you'd watch, right? You'd tune in. You'd watch that on Reddit the next day going, dear God.
Yeah.
Well,
dear God.
That's, I think, the con part of the film here is like, I like how it started with, the star for me is interesting because, and I'll get to it here, is the star is, it starts, it's made, then it gets dirty. And then in the end, the last thing we see before we see the face on the star is not only is it bloody from what she's done, she has sullied it herself, but then like Hollywood just cleans it up and it's good as new. Like that's Hollywood. But it's also, the food thing is what I find interesting too, is if you remember that's the sequence when, I think, Chris, you brought it up earlier, is when she is about to have relations with a young gentleman caller she has over, and then she realizes that she's
running out of time.
She's maybe pushed it too far with the feeding of the older body. But like, again, it's like, I get that because you can only get so much borrowed time on trying to make yourself look a certain way all the time in the public eye, because you can't maintain that forever. And that's, I think, I think that's what the point there is too. And like, Chris, I wanted to ask you, because I had a comment on that. about the 140 mark, I remember pausing it there about that hour 40, hour 41. I can't remember what scene that was, but I remember also thinking when I played it again, yeah, this is kind of gone off the rails for me. So it's interesting that you and I both thought at that same point, within a couple seconds differences, that's where the movie kind of loses us. I just don't remember what was going on.
That's about the point where she becomes the hunchback, though.
Yeah.
So
is it where she does the emergency, where she re-injects herself with the only use once, and then like she keeps looking?
No, that's before that.
Okay.
Yeah, no. So the 140 mark is about when she ends up like she's become the hunchback. You know, she's become Quasi, and she makes the phone call to to whoever she's calling, and it's right before her and Sue end up she ends up trying to off herself
to ninja fight each other.
Yeah, and that's what then leads into like very quickly into the amalgamation Monstro thing. So, but again, that's where it kind of falls off, because it's like the movie was showing us not that she was going to become a monster. It was showing her getting older. The other guy it shows in the restaurant is a guy getting older. You know what I mean? Like so it's like it's taking the youth from what's left of the youth from her now to fuel the younger self, right?
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden it's not that. Again, like that's where it's like, okay, now I have to change the way I'm thinking about what the rules are. That it's okay that they didn't tell me the rules, but they've shown me rules that I've established as true.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're not losing youth anymore. Now we're just an actual feral beast that has super strength and can fight. And then it becomes and then when Sue uses it on herself, and then we get Monstro Sue or whatever, Monstro Elizabeth Sue, like that makes more sense to me, because like the clone is making a clone of itself. It probably won't work right.
That's right.
But, like,
never make a copy of a copy.
Exactly. But leading into that, when she's becoming more leprous and monstrous and stuff, that did make sense to me. I thought she would just get older and more frail and weaker, and then it kind of shifts, and then it becomes the Cliff that is Monstro version. So whatever.
So can I ask a question that is not thoroughly explained and where I have my own idea about?
Yeah.
So like when they say, or when the disembodied voice is like, there is no we, it's you are one.
Yeah.
So am I wrong in thinking that they share some memory link too, at least a little bit? Or because there are some times where it seems like they do, and there are other times where it seems like they don't at any capacity, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it feels like she knows what she's done. She hasn't lived the experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Like her body doesn't, but it's almost like she knows what's happened. It's like she has the knowledge of, but not the actual experience.
Okay, that's kind of how I felt too.
Yeah.
What about you, Grayson? Any?
Yeah, I definitely felt. Although that's kind of where I had the questions. Again, I know it's like you're asking what is surreal in the surreal version of this, but it's. I sometimes want, because like, wouldn't those characters know that they are dependent on one another to survive? You definitely would know that. So even the borrowing, like something you wouldn't do as the younger version is go over your time, so it hurts your older version. Unless they were completely separated and like that was their way of thinking, was like, no, I'm this and I'm going to stay this forever. I feel like every addict feels like that, or every person going through that feels like that at one point.
But I mean, you have a left and right brain too. You have an ego as well. Like I think it talks to a little bit of each of that, where it's like, and again, your younger self, that's a problem for future me. I'd hate to be that person. You know what I mean? It's like,
that guy's a dickhead.
Yeah, right. Screw that guy.
It's funny. So the director here, I meant to mention this earlier, is Coralie Fargut, which she wrote and directed it. But like so we're obviously getting this. I mean, this is obviously from like the female protagonist, Demi Moore. I mean, is she a protagonist or is she also an antagonist?
She's a star.
She's a star.
Yeah,
but
sure. But like, it's also
yeah.
I think it shows a lot of empathy for. I think it's important to note that like we're supposed to feel bad. We're supposed to feel with the older version of, I know it seems like a very common sense thing to say, but to me, like we're supposed to feel for the older version of her and not the younger version, right? That's what we're supposed to side with. The older.
Do you
version.
not? I mean, I
did. I just wondered. I just wonder if that was ever a question, because I never once, like, I was always more sympathetic towards the older version than the younger
Oh, yeah.
version. Always,
Well,
always,
well,
always.
the younger one is the one, causing the issues, but like it's almost to be expected, and I think the movie drives that home. I mean, think about it. If you had to compare yourself to the younger version of you, who's the asshole? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, the younger, absolutely,
Ooh,
younger
that's a
version.
real good question.
No, it's wait. Is that ever the younger version of myself is a complete asshole?
Well, hold on. You say complete asshole just because he's younger and more naive.
No,
That
I know the
doesn't mean
choice.
he's an asshole.
I know the choices I made, and they were bad.
Oh, okay. Because I mean, that's like, look, younger, dumber me made some really bad decisions.
Yeah.
More educated, smarter, older me.
quote unquote.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but
Because, like, look, he's smarter. He's still very much an asshole.
Yeah, but it's easy to like look back at myself at a younger age and and to think exactly like I said earlier, like oh well, I don't got to worry about that yet. I don't got to worry about that. That's not my problem right now. Like I think that's exactly what this speaks to is in the moment when you're trying to hold on to youth. Whatever happens later on, that's later on, man.
At what point do you think you could rewind and kick your own ass? Be like, there's a hard separation point there at one point. Be like, well, up until he turns this age, I could beat the shit out of him. After that,
Yeah, I mean, that's true too. I also like the angle here on like going for the quick fix rather than
sure, that's the addict's way though.
well, like, but that's also, I feel like it's because like Ozempic is a big thing right now, right? The
Okay.
weight loss. They're like,
This is getting
oh,
weird.
don't worry about eating right and exercise. Just take Ozempic. It works. Like now we're finding the horror stories of Ozempic and like how it might not be the best thing in the world.
Yeah.
But like I feel like that's kind of a thing here too. Maybe not like alluding to the actual thing, but like that quick fix versus the more, well, no, you shouldn't. The quick fixes is super quick and very temporary, but the more the better approach is to sit down with a medical professional, figure out what's possible, what's not, and then go down a long plan. Rather, I feel like there's a very clear dichotomy between these.
Well,
two
yeah, I mean, like, look, doing a lot of things is easy. Be like, wait, look, if you invest this every day for 20 years, you end up with $1 million. That's a great long-term plan. If I walk into a place and steal all this money right now I have $1 million. So, like, look, there are definitely pros and cons to all those, right?
Each
like,
of those have
we
their own risks.
Well,
yeah,
sure, but
like, look,
even right now, though, like Ozempic is just that drug that's everyone's talking about right now. If you'd watch this movie 10 months from now, it could be something very different. But that's what all my mind now, because one of my best friends is thinking about taking it. I'm trying to convince him not to, because like you don't know what the long-term effect is. And it's like, this is just for me getting a little personal here. Is like, I would prefer one of my best friends to not take a drug to lose weight. I'd prefer him to get his
I'd
ass
like
out.
him to take drugs recreationally to have more fun and be fucking rad.
I'd rather he get out on the trail, walk, eat right, and over time lose the weight rather than not all like so for me it's a more personal thing because I'm dealing with that right now.
I mean, let your friend know if he smokes crack, he will also lose weight.
Cocaine will help too.
We here on Post Credits Podcast do not advocate the use of any kind of drug. Recreational
have at it, man. Like, look, that is not true. Please, look, you want to get out there and smoke rock, son? Do it.
He sounds like he's advocating. It sounds like advocation, Grayson.
Well, that's Roger's point of view, not my point.
That's right. Look, this is very much my point of view. You want to go you want to go to the moon, baby? Have at it.
But okay. So again, with some of the earlier talk about like how we're not this show, is like there's a lot of that this movie digs into.
You think the Pinky Up people were just advocating for smoking crack with their friends?
No.
Well, yes, first off, but yeah.
Hold on, but I was going to the fact that like we could talk about this. There's so many layers of this film, but like we're not. I mean, we're gonna somewhat wrap it up in the next 5 or 10 minutes. But the point is, like, there are so many layers to the onion here to peel back. We're not that show. So
well, but here's the thing. I think the discussion. I think the point to make here is that there are a lot of layers to this film, but just because a film has layers doesn't mean that it's good, right? Like,
sure,
there can be too much beneath the surface. There can be a lot here for like the average audience viewer. But if we're talking about its Oscar worthiness, then I think it is a different conversation to some people. But in the end, just because a movie has layers doesn't mean it executes those well.
Well,
At every point.
there's two different versions of this movie, and for some reason this movie kept popping in my head. Do you remember that movie with Emma Thompson and I Love You, Leo Grand, or something? Roger, do you remember? Chris, do you guys remember the trailers for that? It was I think it was a
I
crime
do
film.
remember that.
I do
Yeah,
remember
I do
that.
remember that.
She's a character who's also aging, but she's seeing a much younger man, and there are several points in the film where at least 3 different points where and a large part of it is like they meet in a hotel room, they have sex, and like she's trying to figure out who she is as an older woman, as an older lady, as opposed to who she was. And there's several points where we see her look in the mirror for several seconds, and at every juncture in the film, something has just happened that might, or something is said to her that she may never have considered, that she now is like, oh fuck, or like she's considering in a way she hasn't considered before, and like we're meant to understand that she is becoming more comfortable with who she is over the course of the film. And I think, just as an example, like there's another version of the Substance who maybe is a very successful actress in TV and film, but in this version, it's not this wild ride of a drug addict that's kind of going through the repercussions of accepting this drug, and like once you accept it, you can't stop it for a while, but then you can, but after it's done monumental damage. There's a version of this movie I think is preferred to me, and I'll turn it over to you guys in a second here, is where we watch this woman who she hears conversations, well, like, no, she's great, but she's too old, she won't bring the box office anymore. And like the pure pig-headed, they're not looking at the substance of the film, they're not looking at the substance of the actor, which are great. They're looking at only what she looks like. And like that is Hollywood, but like there's another version of this film that isn't this. And I think I would have preferred the version we didn't get. I don't want to be that guy who's like, oh, I would have done this differently. I'm just saying there's a whole different movie I think that could have existed, that also could have been Academy nominated and raved about. And I know this is kind of a weird line of thought, but like, which one of those would you prefer? And it's kind of it's an existential look at a woman who is aging out of the roles in Hollywood, and it's saying something about the Hollywood system, and she's aging out and she knows it, but she can't stop it, but she also can't reverse time. And it's like one of those films where like she's always looking at a reflection in the mirror and seeing herself in different ways. Like that's just a version of the movie I would have preferred. But again, I know it's that weird area where like I don't want to be that guy like, oh, I would have done this because I didn't make the movie. So
I mean, I think that choice is easy for me to make because like I don't want to do that. And so like this is the movie we get. So this is the movie that I get to watch and the one that I'll get to judge on. Like I understand why this movie is nominated for some Oscars. Like doesn't exactly completely resonate home with me. Obviously, a guy in his early 40s, doesn't really have to worry about most of that stuff. No one gives a shit what I look like most of the time. So but like look, I could see where this would be, a crisis for a lot of folks. And this is obviously a bit overblown with some things that happen and can happen in life, but like overall, like I think this movie's, I think it's kind of wild, for better or for worse. Like I get why people like it, not necessarily for me, but like I'm happy I watched it because now I can have an informed opinion on this movie. So fine by me.
Yeah,
yeah. Go ahead.
I think similarly, it's this is the movie that we have, and I think that we're talking about it because it like I don't know. I think there has to be a modicum of shock value in a movie like this, and that it's what fuels the conversation, gets it off the ground, so to speak, in that way. I think this movie has effective storytelling, and it's effective at getting its point across. I just think it jumps the shark at some point when I think that's the only thing that I think should have possibly been considered a shift. I think the other version of this movie that you talk about, Grace, and I think when you say that, I don't think about it going down the lane that you said. I think the other version of this movie is at that 1 minute, that an hour 40 mark. I think the movie takes a more grounded approach to what happens to to everyone involved, and then tells the story that way. I think that then it's not art it's it's not pinky up art anymore. I think then at that point it's just this is a film with a message kind of deal, and I think that
Sure.
it doesn't
Yeah.
get the same recognition that it got too.
I totally understand that. And I guess today we're just sitting where shock value sells. I mean, that's where we're sitting with movies. It's where, I mean, that's why a lot of decisions are made in Hollywood, I'm sure, based on
I mean,
you got to give,
yeah.
you got to one up the previous year with.
I mean,
with
at
what's
28
in
minutes,
movies.
at 28 minutes in, another person comes out of someone else's back. You know what I mean? Like this is
true.
the movie we're watching.
Like a fully formed human person, by the way.
Yeah.
And like she sews her up with like a fish hook, and it's like, oh my god! And then she
Yeah.
jabs the needle into her. Like oh god! I couldn't take it. I was getting queasy, and I have a thing with needles, man. I can't. I just don't do needles.
I'm achieving my youth at any cost. That's what it says.
Well, that's it. That's that's the quick elevator pitch before they're like, okay, well, before you tell me the 40-second, tell me the tagline. Well, yeah.
Hold on. Are we going back to talking about smoking crack again? Yes or no?
No.
Okay.
I guess so final thoughts. It is a much more wild ride than I anticipated, only because I also didn't see a trailer for this. I don't think I ever saw a trailer. I didn't know what to expect. I know that Demi Moore just got a ton of awards for this, for the Golden Globes. I think it was the Golden Globes, and
It was a Golden Globe, yep.
She was very well recognized. And after seeing the film, I absolutely understand why, for sure. So, but that was the only kind of background with this film I had going into it. That was a wild ride, man. And the question I want to ask you guys is rewatchability, yes or no, Roger, Chris?
It'll be a while. I'll probably watch this again someday, though. But here's the thing: it's
I'll
long.
never watch it again.
So
yeah, I'll never watch it again.
just me, huh?
So it's for no other reason than like I've seen it. I don't like the way it plays out. I have no reason to go back to it. It's not gonna. It hasn't. It doesn't. I'm not going to think about this film beyond what we talk about. When we get closer and closer to the Oscars. I'm not thinking about this movie because it's going to stick with me. I'm talking about this movie because I talk on a movie podcast with a couple of dudes. You know what I mean? Like that's what it comes down to for me. I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen a movie like this before, but I've seen a movie tell its story like this before, and I don't think it does anything outside of that realm.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really think it. For me, I can't see me turning this on to watch something while I make dinner. I can't see turning it on to watch while I go to sleep. It doesn't really fit any of that criteria for me.
What about a date movie? What about a date movie?
No, absolutely. It's so
bold choice.
Some people just never forget. Some people took their significant others to this movie to watch a movie together in a theater.
A lot of statistics would say that definitely probably happened. And I'm sure people walked out of it or wanted to or felt very uncomfortable depending on what.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine taking a first date to, hey, you want to, Substance is up for a lot of awards. You want to go watch that? I don't know what it's about. You want to go watch it?
That's called a tone setter.
You sure?
I want you to know where I'm at, what I bring to the table. It's this fucking right here.
Oh God, that in context, that's a terrible fucking tone setter. If that's what you're saying.
And then after the movie,
or absolute perfection. There's no in between.
Oh Jesus.
There's no be like, it's fine.
and then after the movie ends, in the movie, like this is your first date, you then pull what you think is going to be your fix later. That she's like, you're like. You in, you out. You either in, you're out. Like, what do you want? So,
no. The end of this movie, you turn your head to the side, and she's already gone. You know what I mean? That's what happened.
Oh yeah,
way gone.
She was gone
left
after
an hour and a half ago. Yeah,
yeah.
She left when they split out of each other's bodies.
Yep. She's like, I'm fucking gone.
What the fuck? I'm gonna go get a drink. Okay, cool. I'll be right here. Gone.
Yep.
I guess my favorite thing about this movie is his awful walk. Is like I keep thinking about that. It's like. He practiced it. That the director was like, can you just, before you shoot that tomorrow, can you just like at home practice your douchey walk? Can you just come up with like an asshole walk? I need you to do it down a long hallway. And it's just, it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. But other than that, I really enjoyed it once. I can't see a moment. I can't see events play out would ever voluntarily play this again because there's so much to watch otherwise. And it's just, I know what this is. And it's a wild ride.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you very much, guys, for joining me. For
this
discussion.
Yeah. 'Twas fun.
Yeah.
We have a lot of Oscar movies coming up in the weeks to come. So this is just one of many.
Faux show.
And if you're listening to this as a post early in the week, you have another one coming on Friday posting about Conclave.
A couple of days later.
couple of days later, indeed, gentlemen.
You're
thank you
welcome.
for
Work
joining me
hard for you
for-
people.
Hey, yeah, you do.
You-
This has
not
been
you.
episode
You, though.
15 of Post Credits Podcast, a show where we are lucky enough to talk about movies with you. Each new episode posts every Tuesday morning at 5 a.m., and the bonus episodes will post on Friday at the same time on your choice of the following 6: Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and YouTube for the video versions. Please rate, subscribe. Every little bit helps. And like and subscribe to YouTube for more of this.
Yes.
'Cause this is what you people come here for.
Smash that like button, folks.
If you want to hear more
Smash
about smoking crack, this is where Roger talks about it. Against my wishes. But
You wait till I talk about Conclave.
we watched. I'm pretty sure there's no crack in Conclave, but maybe I missed it.
You weren't looking hard enough.
Hmm.
So anyway, episode 15, Grayson's tender cheeks.
Grayson's sweet cheeks.
And crack smoking.